Today is a special day that we have been waiting for today, because Scott Bessent was supposed to announce the details of Operation Economic D-Day. So we went from economic fury to economic D-Day, and he did. He came out, and we have a whole bunch of new announcements. All right. So first quote, saying today at President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury has begun Operation Economic Outcast. Oh, that's the name. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone. Here's another quote. President Trump has taken action that his predecessors have long deferred, and under his leadership, America is no longer managing the Iranian threat. We are ending it. The strength of America's economy under President Trump allows us to wage this sustained financial operation. Here's another quote. Iran now faces a very clear choice with only two paths before them: complete global isolation and subsistence economy. Yes, subsistence economy, yes, or a path back to normalcy with an opportunity to rejoin the global economy. Today, we are launching Operation Economic Outcast to foreclose every other option available to the Iranian regime. Here's another quote. The final refuge to this regime is the mistaken conclusion of nations that still finance the Iranian threat in the hopes of evading it. It is no longer acceptable to operate in the gray spaces of this conflict. And then we have more. He's saying nations that facilitate any interactions with the regime should quickly heed our message. Those who stand with the United States will reap the rewards of our partnership. Those who tether themselves to the Iranian regime should expect to share in the isolation of a withering regime. Lastly, let me be clear: any entity that facilitates money laundering, facilitate money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the US dollar system. The clock just started ticking. Okay, so here are, obviously, that sounds very aggressive. Here's what I was hoping to hear, and I didn't. Okay, I was hoping to hear a direct reference to China, and there was no mention of China. Okay, I know maybe I'm asking for too much, but I was hoping he would mention it. However, Scott Bessent, the first uh, news agency that it picked in the Q&A section, I just watched it before this, before I came here, was Reuters. So he said he went to Reuters first. And the Reuters is interesting because I've been saying for a few days that it's the most important part is China. The United States is able to, it's easier to deal with the other people, other countries to isolate the Islamic Republic. China is the biggest one. And the first reporter and the second one, no, sorry, and the third one, the first and third one, were asking about China. They're like, what about China? Are you going to do this about China? Are you going to do this about the Chinese refineries? Are you going to do this? Well, actually, they mentioned the banks and other companies. I forgot what the other banks companies were. They mentioned the banks. And Scott Bessent, in his response, didn't single out China specifically. And he said, like I said, everybody, right? So that, I mean, I'm assuming that means China. But the problem is, if you look at the last quote that I read, it's saying Iran will be removed from the US dollar system. Any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the US dollar system. Okay, so there are companies that are specifically designed to help with not using the US dollar system, right? So there needs, and those are Chinese, and there needs to be some other way to target those, right? It is good. This is still good because they're the big banks and the big refineries, not the teacup refineries, but the big banks and the big refineries, They cannot stop dealing using the US dollar system. So taking out like the Hangli refinery and some other major big banks in China and like putting them on notice, that will have a huge impact, right? uh, but there will still be some other smaller companies that are specifically don't use the US dollar system, so they may be still be able to use by the Islamic Republic, not at the same volume. So we need to ask, then there needs to be a question, what are we doing with that? um, there's another point that I think it was the last reporter that brought up. It said that this has been compared to the D-Day, right? But when the Americans attacked on D-Day, they didn't announce ahead of time, right? Because remember, right now the sanctions are not yet being announced. So we some people thought that Scott Bessent is going to come and announce the sanctions. He's not doing that. He said that this is like shooting in the air as a warning. So the sanctions haven't been announced. This is just a warning for countries to to stop their interactions with the Islamic Republic before the sanctions are announced. And somebody also announced that, well, when are you going to announce the sanctions? When are these sanctions going to come? And he didn't give a specific time. And he just said, just know that our patience is running out. And that's what he said. Um, so again, it's going to be very easy with well, not very easy. It's going to be much easier with a lot of these other countries. But the question is the China question, right? So remember that these are the main countries. If we, it's not all the countries in the world. There are specific countries that if you uh, get to push into not trading with the Islamic Republic, everything else will be a very small percentage, right? So if I could remember all the countries, it's China, UAE, which UAE we had great success. They cut all trade with the Islamic Republic. So China number one, UAE was number two. That's why there was such a big deal that they did this. Then we have Turkey, Iraq, Pakistan, and Afghanistan when it comes to trade volume. And this is non-oil trade volume. But oil trade is China. It's just mostly China. And China is right now. China is number one with both oil trade volume and non-oil trade volume. So a lot of these conversations comes down to whether the United States can get the Chinese companies. And remember, if it comes to the Chinese companies themselves, they rather not mess with the United States. Okay. But it's not up to them 100% because these companies are very much controlled by the CCP, right? But if it was up to them, the volume of trade that they have with U.S. companies or U.S. related companies is astronomically higher than the money that they make from any trade with the Islamic Republic. And if it was up to them, they wouldn't be touching the Islamic Republic with a 10-foot pole. But again, if they get forced to do such a thing, the CCP would not be happy. And as powerful as the United States is, the CCP has more of an ability to respond than, I don't know, like than the UAE, right? Relatively. So everybody's waiting to see how aggressively the United States is going to push this against Chinese trade. Um, and also one thing else to ask is how, if this is going to be, some people are voicing concern. And I saw Guy, for example, voices concern before we were in a previous live stream. And I hear so many other people saying this, is that are they going to keep this isolation until the regime collapses, or are they waiting for another deal? Because if they keep this isolation, it is easy to say why this is going to get us really close. Not enough. Obviously, we need other things, but it's going to help us really get closer to regime collapse. But some people are worried that the United States is then going to get a call from somebody else with the Islamic Republic and then promising them, okay, we're going to give you this and this and this, and President Trump is going to call off the isolation. And that's a concern that people have, that this is working so well right now to weaken the Islamic Republic. But what if they don't keep at it and they remove all of this isolation because the Islamic Republic offers them a good deal? And this is a major concern of some people. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. Sorry, I went for too long. But let's go to the twos.
Next up is Jeff.
Yeah, very much so. Um, yeah, Operation Economic Outcast is something that needs to be done, and it's very much targeting. It's a pretty broad. It's very broad. As far as delinking, that has to be done with. I mean, it's true. It also illustrates another more broader policy in response to the increasing the fact we're in the opening stages of a high intensity world war, particularly a pre-conflict national mobilization for strategic self-sufficiency and or centering around strategic autarky, right? Not all autarky, not economic isolation, strategic autarky, meaning that no hostile power, coalition, single foreign choke point, or sever maritime route can prevent the United States from maintaining essential functions of national power. The model should be domestic capacity first, national North American redundancy second, like is to tiers, then trusted ally redundancy third. So adversary dependence approaching zero for critical systems, kind of centering on these areas: energy and abundance, critical minerals and materials, semiconductor production, machine tools and industrial machinery, chemical and energetic materials, pharmaceutical and medical sovereignty, food and agricultural resilience, which we kind of already have, shipbuilding and merchant marines, transportation and logistics, munitions and weapons, communication, cloud, cyber, and AI, financial system resilience, strategic stockpiles. All of those will require us to mobilize. I would contend we should be mobilizing our society akin to something immediately prior and during the Second World War in pursuit of those efforts. And that includes bringing online things like peripheral pools of labor. In this case, non-violent criminals should be provided the option of opting in to working in pursuit of that. So you pay them a living wage. They work 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. They get Sundays off. Their 75% of their money is actually saved in a treasury and placed in protected security. And when they're done, they're given either a presidential pardon or a governor pardon, depending on which crimes that they were incarcerated for. Why? It's to insulate the blowback or secondary and tertiary impacts of having to do this, which we should indeed do it. I'm glad Bessent and President Trump are doing it. I would contend also it should also be followed with the mass air campaign and military approach, because even if all that's done optimally, which I very much have a lot of confidence in President Trump and especially Bessent doing it, because they are very capable, committed people. You also want to minimize harm to the Iranian people. The Mullah regime remnants are going to do nothing other than rob whatever they can to limp along as long as possible. And I want to minimize the pain to Iranian people who have shown quite clearly that they are our ally. So, what's my thoughts on it? I think it's amazing. I can't wait till Bessent starts to get to stomping in his economic Air Force One. There's some other steps that have to be taken coterminously to ensure we have an optimal outcome both for the United States, US led Western Alliance, and Iranian resistance inside Iran.
Thank you, Amu Jeff. Eliani.
Hey Armin. So, my question was directly for you. So I was, can you explain what you mean by you were disappointed that China wasn't specifically mentioned? So, like, a lot of this goes over my head, but what I do understand is that it's kind of like obvious, it's like in bold font that China would be most affected as their like number one trading partner. So, like, why were you disappointed by that not being stated explicitly?
Because if you, yeah, I mean, it's obvious that they're talking about China, but if you don't mention China, it seems like you're afraid of China. Why you're not mentioning them, given that that's the main target? Like, to me, if you just mention them by name, it shows that you don't give a crap anymore, and you're going to be very aggressive about it. You don't care about their feelings being hurt. You don't care, like, you're not tiptoeing around them. You're just calling them out. You're mentioning them by name. Does that make sense?
Okay, I got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, I got you.
Okay,
Good
thanks,
question.
Eliani. Richard, you're up.
Thanks a lot. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do have some concerns. One of my most concerning ones is a third path. Bessent had mentioned that the options are either for Iran by the regime to be basically isolated, or to what he called take steps to join the path of the community of nations. They have a third option, which actually proved pretty successful in the last round of conventional war. They just simply bully, Arab and European so-called allies to put pressure on our government to blunt the effects of the strikes. If it worked with conventional warfare, there's really no reason from their perspective, the regime's perspective, that it wouldn't work in blunting the effect of economic warfare, especially considering that it's much easier to elicit cooperation and clandestine assistance from, if you don't have full cooperation from all of the parties intended to be targeted by this, it completely blunts the effect. So again, I'm somewhat concerned because I think I would expect that the regime will probably launch, some kind of conventional strikes against the Gulf countries, the trust fund babies, probably within days, with the specific intent of blunting the sanctions.
Okay, Richard, you have a major echo, and I didn't stop you because it was still understandable. But a lot of people in the chat were saying like echo, echo, echo. So if you could please fix it for next time, that would be great. But yeah, and also let me know in the chat if it was understandable. And thank you, Richard.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Noah.
Noah?
I'm here. So Armin, I was a little bit disappointed as well that I didn't hear sanctions, not only for China but other trading partners of the regime, including Russia, even though it's gone down a lot. But you you pretty much answered my questions when you were talking with Eliani. So that's all I was going to say.
It's interesting that you mentioned Russia. I don't know if how big of a deal Russia is anymore. Russia, I mean, it's always a big deal, but relative to before. But I mean, I'm not talking about military equipment being exchanged, because that's always something that United States is going to be should be stopping. We're talking about the new things that we're talking economically. Russia's biggest contribution to the Islamic Republic was their refineries, right? And the fact that they will give the Islamic Republic, they will give them refined car fuel, right, and other fuels that they could burn, because the Islamic Republic doesn't have enough refineries itself to refine its own oil, which is kind of really pathetic. But I think Ukraine took care of that a lot. A lot of people think that the current shortage of gasoline and refined fuel in Iran is just because of the economic blockade by the United States. But it's not that. A lot of the shortage right now is because Ukrainians took out a lot of refineries in Russia, which is the main source of refined fuel for the Islamic Republic. And I mean, technically, Ukraine attacked Russia and the Islamic Republic at the same time by doing that, which again is another reminder of how much Iran and Ukraine are aligned, and how much it makes sense for Ukraine and Iran to have a strategic partnership on this, and how much Ukraine and Israel are aligned as well, which I feel like we should be talking about more.
Absolutely right.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.